Hello, all you faceless names on a list out there, and welcome to Undeclared Bajor.
Is that list are the people subscribing on YouTube to this podcast?
Yes.
Okay.
You too can be on this list. But this is Undeclared Bajor, the best Star Trek DS9 podcast. My name is Fletcher. About to say hello is Data.
Mellow greetings.
Today we're going to discuss Star Trek DS9, Season 7, Episode 8, The Siege of AR-558. Alternate title, Caves Darker Than Death or Night.
Okay, yeah.
This episode originally aired November 18th, 1998. It was written by the classic duo ISB and HB, Ira Steven Behr and Hans Beimler, and directed by the classic Vinrich Kolbe.
Yep.
And Sarah Clofton is not in the episode.
Sarah Clofton is not, and there's two main characters who appear in only one scene of the episode.
Well, would those be Odo and Kira?
Yep. Odo at the beginning, Kira at the end.
Right. Although Kira's voice comes in at that beginning part, so I don't know if that counts or not. This
is Vinrich Kolbe's second to last directing job on Deep Space Nine.
Oh, wow. I mean, the series is almost over, so
right.
It's like...
It's not that amazing, you know?
Yeah. But still, you know. We will be discussing spoilers up through this episode, but not after this episode. So if you want to watch along with us and listen to our reviews while you're watching, and you're watching for the first time, it should be safe. We kind of try to do that.
I mean, I don't guarantee safety, but we'll avoid spoilers.
Yeah. I mean, we might play that sound that from Star Wars Andor that like makes you go crazy, but yeah, we'll try not to spoil anything if it's Star Trek Deep Space Nine. Other stuff, watch out, we could spoil anything.
He just spoiled that Andor thing, maybe. I don't know, I haven't watched it. So.
Oh yeah, well the comments say that you need to watch it.
I saw that comment. Yeah,
maybe you need to.
You know what? Right now I'm still doing my Star Trek watch through, so it's gonna have to get in line.
All right, so I guess you won't be catching up in time for us to review Andor or anything like that. Oh well. But anyway, first things first. How would you rate the title, "The Siege of AR-558"?
Well, first off, do you know where the AR-558 comes from?
It has vaguely like THX 1138 vibes or whatever, but
so 558 is the production number. Well, technically it's 4051-0-558, but that's where they got AR-558 from, the production number of the episode. So they're sitting around like, we need a number. Let's just who cares?
Right. Yeah, why not?
Okay, so I don't know that it's clever in any way. It's just kind of like the thing that's happening.
Right.
But it's definitely memorable. Like,
oh yeah.
I remember this as an episode. I could tell you this title if you asked me for a title of an episode of Deep Space Nine. I could tell you exactly which episode it is. So,
yep.
and also, given that it is just what is happening, it is appropriate to the episode. So that's 2 out of our 3 criteria pretty solidly met. I
mean, hard to dispute. I mean, it's like Melora. It just is what the episode is about. So,
yep.
And you know, we need that sometimes.
I mean, I think it works really well here, so I'm okay with it.
Yeah. I would dispute if this counts as an actual siege or not, but...
Oh, yeah, okay, you gotta get... Apparently, these people have been holding out here with, like, repeated waves of Dominion coming after them, so it feels vaguely siege-ish.
I guess, although, you know, the Defiant had no trouble getting there and, like, giving them supplies and stuff.
That's true.
That's kind of like one of the things you're supposed to do in a siege, is stop that from happening, but... I guess they did try to fight them off, and then... just weren't very effective, so...
I feel like, can it really ever be much of a siege if you've got replicators? They specifically say that it's like, oh, we need to get you some replicators, which I feel like should be the first thing you got them when they got here.
Yeah, that's true.
But it's like replicators can make the food and water and stuff, so you're gonna have trouble with a traditional siege in any way.
True. Title sounds cool anyway, so we forgive it. So anyway, Rom stands on the stage at Vic Fontaine's nightclub, singing "The Lady is a Tramp," or his version is "The Lady is a Scamp."
Yep.
This is an old-timey show tune that I suspect was in the public domain in 1998, but I couldn't find any proof on Google, so...
But Max Grodenchik has a whole thing in here about how he's like, man, that was like the best thing ever. I got to sing with a live piano. God bless that piano player. He was great. Usually the hot shower is my only accompaniment, so this was a real treat for me.
Nice. So when Rom's done singing, Vic applauds, and Rom asks Vic if he got the gig as his new opening act. But Vic says, sorry, the opening act can't be a singer, because we can't have two singers on the same ticket. This story is kind of suspicious. Why did Vic let him audition in the first place?
Well, yeah, especially because he's like, also, you're not a hologram.
Right.
I'm like, well, you knew that when he showed up.
Yeah. Vic says he was looking for something more like a comic, and then Rom says, well, I can give that a try. He's like, no, also you need to be a hologram.
Yeah.
I forgot that important requirement.
I love the note here that he's the actor's like, look, this is a really fun thing for me to do. I really got a kick out of them wanting me to sing, and it's a great light moment. I don't think that this little bit of lightness makes the rest of the super heavy episode any easier to take, but still, it was fun for me.
It's kind of a letdown because it kind of makes the promise that we're gonna get this fun Rom wants to be a lounge singer story, but.
I would rather see a story like the movie Sing, where like the whole crew's coming through, like trying out their acts. They all want to be the opening act for Vic.
Nice. Yeah, we need to put that on the list of episodes we need. So anyway, Rom is very sad and he slouches out. And on his way, he passes Dr. Bashir and warns him that Vic isn't hiring. Bashir is here to pick up a compilation tape that Vic made for him of songs to play for the troops on the front lines on his upcoming supply run.
Okay. I feel like this raises a lot of questions.
Uh-huh.
So, you couldn't make a tape yourself of the electronic character doing his electronic songs.
Uh-huh.
You needed it to be made live or something. But also, Vic, the hologram, made a tape in the holosuite that you could then take elsewhere?
Yeah, I was kind of wondering. I was like, so that rod was real the whole time, but Vic the hologram was just carrying it around? Yes, this does raise a lot of questions. I agree.
But also, apparently this episode is one of the longest teasers, coming in at 7 minutes before the credits, and so
wow.
Rom's whole musical number is a big part of that.
Sure. Vic offers to go with Bashir and put on a USO-type show for the troops. But Bashir says there aren't any holosuites where he's going. And Vic just mumbles, soon my day will come. And Bashir's like, what's that? He's like, I mean, boy, being a hologram is a real pain in the asymmetric photons. And then Bashir's like, oh, okay. And then Vic is like, soon the era of flesh will be at an end. Then Odo finds Captain Sisko in the wardroom looking at the latest casualty list. This is the calling back to... When was the first time we saw the casualty list? Was it in the cards or...
Okay, the first time we saw the casualty list... Because the casualty lists played a huge part in the Pale Moonlight, but I don't think that was the same.
Right.
No, this doesn't say.
Okay, but it's a callback to a thing we've been doing. So
yeah,
Odo says he has the new security protocols Sisko asked for, and Sisko says, "I think that's what I'm going to remember the most about this war: looking through casualty reports." And Odo says, I said security protocols.
Yeah, it's completely different words, my man.
But Captain Sisko is clearly feeling very gloomy at all the death. He admits that after a while, all the names have started to blur together. Odo is like, Yeah, that sucks. Anyway, the security protocols. And then Kira calls Captain Sisko and informs him that the Defiant is ready to get going. So Sisko tells Odo, okay, see ya, and walks out. And Odo's like, he didn't even look at the security protocols.
Yep.
And that's a wrap on Odo. So the Defiant sets out on its supply mission or whatever. In the mess hall, Quark complains to himself about being sent on a fact-finding mission to the front lines by Grand Nagus Zek.
I actually agree with Quark here. Like, this is a ridiculous request.
Yeah, what specific facts Zek wants, who knows?
It's like, they're shooting people out here. That is what is happening on the front lines.
So here's some facts I found. There's a lot of fighting going on. It's pretty brutal.
They maimed a Ferengi.
Mm-hmm. Fact, Nog now is down a leg.
Yep. Apparently, in the original draft of the script, he was going to lose both legs.
Oh.
But then, Ronald D. Moore, it was like, in the original one, he loses both legs, and then Rick Berman was like, nah, we need to go a little lighter on that. So they went for the one leg.
I feel like it's basically the same thing, but whatever. Ezri tells Quark to cheer up. It's just a sign that the Nagus trusts him. I mean, it seems more likely that the Nagus is trying to get Quark killed, but...
That seems way more likely, yeah. It's like... he wants a Ferengi perspective on it. But why? Like, what is that going to get you?
As a Ferengi, I can tell you people are getting shot.
Ezri's good at looking at the bright side, though.
True. She's keeping up that counselor-ness. But then there's a jolt and alarms start sounding. Ezri runs off, and Quark starts wandering around in the corridors. He bumps into Worf, who explains that the whole Chintaka system is a hotly fought-over battleground. I should probably write this down, says Quark, wondering if this is the kind of fact that Zek wants.
I mean, this is not the kind of fact that Quark would need to bring him. I feel like this is something everyone knows.
And I guess AR-558 is in the Chintaka system. I think they said that at some point.
Yeah, I think it's like a moon or something that's in there.
Worf and Quark arrive on the bridge right as the Defiant is putting the finishing touches on blowing up the attacking Jem'Hadar ship.
Yeah. Show them.
Yeah. Sisko orders Chief O'Brien to keep an eye out for more Jem'Hadar ships. Aye, sir, says the Chief. Excellent suggestion. This is why you're the captain. Quark tries to strike up a conversation with Nog, but Nog is busy working. Sisko politely tells Quark to go away.
Yeah, I mean, he should.
Yeah.
We've established before you don't need to be on the bridge, Quark. There's no reason for this.
Yep.
Apparently, AR-558 is a small planetoid in the Chintaka system.
Sure. Moon, planetoid, dwarf planet, asteroid, whatever. Quark leaves the bridge with an open invitation for anyone who wants to hang out and have a racked Gino with him. And Sisko's like, dude, just get out of here. And then Nog promises the captain that won't happen again, and Sisko just stares at him.
Well, you can't possibly make that promise. So, also, it's not Nog's fault. Let's be fair. Sisko, I feel like, should understand this.
Ezri tries to smooth things over by telling Nog that Quark is just nervous. He doesn't have a lot of combat experience, but Nog is still upset. So they arrive at their destination, AR-558, and get ready to deliver their supplies. Sisko, Bashir, Nog, and Quark beam down to AR-558, which is in the cave set. Worf and O'Brien stay above in the Defiant and don't do much for the rest of the episode.
And this is one of the caviest caves ever, though.
Oh, yeah.
Like
there's some heavy caveage going on in this episode.
But apparently the writers were very specific that they wanted Nog, Ezri, Quark, and Bashir to be the central characters of this because they had the least fighting experience.
Okay,
they're
makes
like,
sense.
If we sent down like Worf and O'Brien and Kira, like they would understand how to handle themselves in this situation, and it wouldn't be like a thing.
Right. So it's like, remember North the Battle to the Strong? Let's do that, but with like 4 of our characters.
One of those same ones, but also some other ones.
But right after the away team arrives, someone starts shooting at them. The good thing is, whoever's shooting at them isn't a very good shot, and nobody is injured. The bad thing is, those people who aren't a very good shot are the Federation troops.
Yeah.
Sisko realizes those are Federation phasers, and he tells them to stop shooting. And we meet two of our guest people for this episode. Vargas, the trigger-happy soldier who didn't know supplies were coming, and Lieutenant Larkin, who is now in charge after all the higher-up officers were killed. Vargas is in a pretty bad mood because they were supposed to be rotated out after 90 days, but they've been here for 5 months.
Which is like 66% more than they were supposed to, I guess.
Yeah, so... And to make matters worse, the Jem'Hadar called his abuelita a biznatch.
I don't remember that part of it, but okay.
It's funny, I do. But Larkin shows Sisko the reason they're defending this cave set. It has a big Dominion communications array in it, and they're trying to hack in. Larkin explains that the Jem'Hadar keep attacking, trying to get it back. And now they're down to 43 people from the original 150.
Yeah, that's some serious attrition there.
Sisko's like, yeah, well, that sucks.
Yeah, it sucks to be you guys. See ya.
Where do you want these supplies? An engineer working on the communications thing asks someone to hand him a duonetic coupler. So Ezri gives him one. And he asks if she's an engineer, and she says her previous host Tobin was. And he's like, okay, sounds good. And he immediately shanghais her into helping him work.
Played by the amazing Bill Mumy.
Oh, yeah. Well, I don't know who Bill Mumy is, but I saw his name in the credits. I was like, that's a funny name.
Well, let's see. He played Will Robinson in the Lost in Space TV series Once Upon a Time.
Oh, wow.
He's also a one of the very important main characters on Babylon 5. So he has a sci-fi pedigree, one might say.
He has a lot of people being out in outer space experience.
Yeah, it's funny. Like one of the other people who's on Babylon 5, who's not like top tier star, but like second level, is Patricia Tallman, who is a regular stunt double on Deep Space Nine, and was in fact the stunt double for I think for the lieutenant, the female actress in this episode. So It was like, hey, I know you.
Nice. I mean, I don't know. That guy, I don't know how old that guy is, but he seems maybe a little young to be the original Will Robinson, but I guess he's just like taking care of himself or something.
Yeah, how let's see, when no, not the 2018 Lost in Space. That's not what I want.
I guess he could be like 40 or something.
Yeah, hold on. When was the original Lost in Space TV series? It was 1965 to 68, and Bill was born in 1954. Oh. So he was about like 10, 11, 12 during that airing. So
he's like 44 in this episode.
He looks pretty good in this episode for 44. Well, in Babylon 5, he wears like big old alien prosthetics and stuff. So his age isn't super visible. So that it hadn't occurred to me that like how old he is.
Huh. So anyway, meanwhile, Quark finds Nog creepily hiding and staring at a soldier wearing a necklace of Ketracel White vials. Nog says the guy took those vials off the bodies of dead Jem'Hadar, and it's his way of keeping score. Such a badass. Which I think you're kind of filling in a bunch of blanks yourself there, Nog, but okay.
Yeah, maybe he just likes Ketracel White tubes, you know?
Yeah. Maybe he's like he wants to give the Ketracel White to like Jem'Hadar in need or something. I don't know.
So it says the characters of Reese and Kellen were seen by the writers as extremely important from thematic points of view. So Reese is this guy wearing the Ketracel White tubes, which was about as grisly as we could get on Star Trek. Although there's another note that like we previously saw a Klingon wearing Cardassian neck bones around his neck in a similar way. So I guess he wasn't Federation. He can be grisly if he wants.
Yeah, Ketracel White isn't that grisly. I mean, just the implication that you've killed a bunch of people to get them.
Yeah. And so it's like Kellen provides this alternative to Reese. But Reese, the hard-as-nails guy who gives up his humanity, lives in the end, and the decent guy, Kellen, dies because war is cruel.
Deep.
Yeah.
So, anyway, Quark warns Nog to be careful. This is the dark side of Starfleet. Nog says, no, these guys have just been through a lot. They're heroes. And Quark says, let me tell you something about humans. See, their morals, their code, it's a bad joke. Dropped at the first sign of trouble. They're only as good as the world allows them to be. I'll show you when the chips are down, these civilized humans, they'll eat each other.
Huh.
Wow, says Nog. That's a little bleak and nihilistic for you, Uncle.
He's always trying to find stuff to gripe about with humans. But there's actually, shocking no one probably, Armin Shimmerman is very proud of this his role in this episode, but that speech in particular.
Okay.
Where he's like, yeah, this is like Quark's finest moment.
Wow.
These beautiful comments, and I was honored to make them. And Ira Stephen Bear calls Quark the moral consciousness of the episode.
I don't know. I feel like this is a pretty bleak morality, but...
Well, so Armin Shimmerman goes on to say that like Star Trek is usually from the Federation perspective, and it's like the humans that it's all centered on. But in this episode, they allowed me to express this other than Federation point of view. I got to do a thing that was Spock-like in the sense that Spock was an outsider and he could comment on humanity.
All right.
Which, having watched the original series recently, he is often like talking down about humanity. I noticed.
Yeah. So Dr. Bashir offers some doctorly services to the troops. He gives Vargas some hypo sprays for his fever and congestion, then moves to look at a wound on his arm. But as Bashir goes to remove the bandage on his arm, Vargas points a phaser at Bashir's head and says, "Stop helping."
Yeah, see, this is the kind of thing that's like, man, maybe you do need to rotate this guy out if he's doing that to, like, superior officers.
Yep. Vargas explains that a guy named McGreevy put that bandage on him. He tore it off his own uniform and wrapped it around Vargas's arm. He wrapped it tight, tight, tight. Yeah. Bashir says, "Sounds like a good guy." Vargas says, "No, he was a loudmouth jerk. I hated him."
Yeah, he really hated McGreevy, I gotta say.
He goes on a long speech about how much he hated McGreevy. But then McGreevy got shot, and he was quiet. So quiet. And Vargas just breaks down crying. And Bashir's like, where's our counselor? She's not being distracted with mundane engineering tasks, is she?
Maybe we should have brought Chief O'Brien. Like, he probably could have had that thing fixed up lickety-split.
I thought that several times throughout the episode. It's like, why don't we get Chief O'Brien down here? But Bashir goes to Cisco and tells him, yeah, these people's physical and mental health is precarious at best. Multiple underlines under mental.
Yep.
They need to be rotated out. And Cisco says, well, there's nothing we can do. And then they get interrupted by a banging sound. Someone set off a mine. But not just any mine. A Houdini. Mines that hide in subspace and just appear at random and blow up on people. Much like the famous Earth magician Houdini.
Yeah, he was always like jumping out and blowing up on people. And he'd go, Houdini!
Yep.
Like that. It was good.
Houdini! Then Worf calls down from the Defiant and says, dude, there's a bunch of Jim'Hadar here. They just landed a bunch of troops 9 kilometers from your cave set. You need to get back up here so we can leave. But Cisco says, no, we're staying.
For some reason.
And then Lieutenant Larkin asks Cisco what his orders are. And he says, there's only one order. We hold. It's like, okay, sure. But I was hoping for something a little bit more, useful, like, tactical.
And maybe could the Defiant send a few more guys down just to shore up the numbers?
Yeah. You 4 people or whatever are great, but
it's like you brought us a counselor and a doctor and a kid. Did I hear something about a Klingon on your ship? That might help.
It's like, who's that Klingon sounding guy who just called down? Can we get him?
And it's like, did I hear, like, someone told me that, like, the hero of, what was that thing that Orion's the hero of?
Oh, yeah.
Setlik 3 was on the ship. Sounds like the perfect person to bring down and help.
It's like for weeks, everybody's just been talking about getting to meet the hero of Setlik 3. He's just going to stay on the ship. Anyway, everybody hunkers down behind some rocks. They can't tell how many Jim'Hadar are out there because all the tricorders are jammed. Luckily, they have Nog to put on listening duty with his super sensitive Ferengi ears. Nog notices Reese sharpening a knife, and he says, "Hey, cool knife. Can I see it?" But he's like, "No, just listen.
Get your own knife."
Then a bunch of Jem'Hadar show up and start walking leisurely towards them. They start shooting the Jem'Hadar, but the Jem'Hadar don't shoot back. They just keep walking. And Sisko says, "Hold your fire, those aren't Jem'Hadar, they're just holograms. It was all a ploy to see what kind of numbers and position there are."
Man, I guess there was like a holosuite down here. They could have brought Vic after all.
So, Bashir's like, "Oh man, I'm not going to tell Vic about this part." Everybody stops firing and relaxes, except Vargas, who is doing the whole game over man routine. But then suddenly someone gets blown up by a Houdini. So Sisko goes to Ezri, an engineer guy, and says, "Can you guys do anything about these Houdinis, like an engineering type thing?" And it's like, "Oh wow, great idea. I can see why you're the captain."
Why didn't we think of that?
He's like, "I'm an engineer, not a magician." And Ezri says, "Oh, he can do it. Chief O'Brien would be proud to have this guy on his crew." And Sisko's like, "Oh wow, Chief O'Brien said that? Man, this guy must be good. All right, get to it." And she's like, "No, I was just saying," but Sisko has already walked off.
In fact, after this battle, maybe we'll transfer you to Deep Space Nine, and you can become a recurring character. It'll be great.
Oh, I see big things in this guy's future.
Yeah, like Munez died, and we haven't gotten a new like assistant engineer recurring character.
So Quark goes over to the defensive position to bring Nog some snackage. Nog says, "Dude, you're making me look bad in front of the badass soldiers. I want to earn their respect." And Quark says, "At the cost of your soul?" And Nog is like, I really don't think the stakes are that high.
Also, I don't know that in Ferengi mythology, the Blessed Exchequer will care about this. Like, it's about how much profit he's made, right? So,
well, if he's fighting a war, he's not making very much profit, is he?
Well, that's true, but it's like, it's not less profit than he would have made doing any of the other Starfleet things that he was doing.
True. Quark says that Nog is holding his rifle like it's made of pure latinum. And Nog is like, "No, I'm holding it like there's a bunch of guys out there on their way to kill us, and this is the only thing between me and them."
Well, and also, I'm holding it carefully so that I don't drop it and accidentally kill someone, because this is a dangerous weapon.
That too. Quark tells Nog, "Stop thinking like a human and start thinking like a Ferengi. If the Federation had listened to the Ferengi, there wouldn't be any war. They could have brought the Dominion to the negotiating table, because that's the correct thing to do when faced with an aggressive, conquest-driven enemy. Negotiate."
Well, I mean, it's not like the Federation has never tried to negotiate with the Dominion.
Yeah. It's like, just like in Munich, they negotiated to stop that war from happening. Oh, wait.
And it never did. So, apparently, it says Aaron Eisenberg, Patrick Kilpatrick, who plays Reese, and Vinrick Colby all work together on an episode of Star Trek Voyager called Initiations, in which Aaron Eisenberg and Kilpatrick both played Kazons.
Oh, nice.
So I was like, wow, so like while Deep Space Nine was still running, you got Nog over to the other set to like be a Kazon, huh?
Yeah. I forget who it is. A long time ago, I heard some behind the scenes stuff that someone like got in trouble for like going to the Voyager set and eating their craft services.
Oh, that sounds like a Delta Flyers thing.
Yeah. I think I heard that on there somewhere. Oh no, I think it was Harry Kim got in trouble for going to the Deep Space Nine set and eating their craft services.
Oh, outrageous!
I think that's what it was. So I think Aaron Eisenberg was like, I gotta like see what their craft services are like.
He's like, they don't give us any vegetarian options on the Voyager side.
So Sisko comes over and says, "Hey Nog, I need you, Larkin, and Badass Guy to go on a scouting mission. Use your super ears to figure out where the Jem'Hadar are." And then Nog says, "Sure thing, talking to my uncle is not helping my morale." And then Quark continues being a downer and asks Sisko why it has to be Nog. "I bet you wouldn't send Jake out there." And Sisko was like, "You're right, I absolutely would not send Jake out on any kind of important mission."
I mean, okay, yeah, he's like, Jake is not a Starfleet officer. Jake does not appear in most of the episodes. Jake doesn't have super good ears, so no, He wouldn't be my first choice.
Meanwhile, Esri is tinkering with the tricorder and somehow gets it to work. Engineer Guy is impressed, but Esri says most of the credit probably belongs to Tobin or Jadzia. Engineer Guy asked, "Isn't that confusing to have so many past lives?" "That's my whole character arc, man," says Esri. Yep. Esri says it's weird that she's been in combat many times in her past lives, but this is her first time on the front lines herself. Engineer Guy's like, "Yeah, having other people's memories of combat is one thing. Living through it yourself is another."
I assume.
Yeah, it's like, oh wow, you have a bunch of past lives too? Nog and the patrol are successful in finding the Jem'Hadar. I guess they're like in a different cave set.
Yep.
They're doing some kind of sword practice or something instead of just going and attacking the position they know where it is. Their mission accomplished, the team starts to run back to their base. But Nog hears something up ahead and redirects them. But it's an ambush! Larkin gets shot in the back and dies. Nog gets shot in the leg and starts screaming.
Like, it's a good scream.
It's a good Ferengi scream.
Yeah, Ferengi scream, exactly.
Reese makes it back to base carrying Nog on his shoulders.
Well, she's just more badass all the time.
Oh, yeah. Reese never has an unbadass moment. He reports that there's 2 columns of Jem'Hadar. Sisko says they'll have to even out the odds somehow. And then Reese tells Sisko the kid did all right. I mean, right up until he led us into that ambush.
Yeah, and then, like, scream to make sure that they all knew where we were.
Right. That was not a very stealthy scream, but I can't really blame him for that.
So there's a quote from Aaron Eisenberg about the lesson Nog learns in this episode. Because it's like, Nog had been a gung-ho soldier who thought nothing could happen to him. He wanted to be Starfleet and be the best of the best because only the best could become captain. So no matter what he saw, no matter how many people he saw die, he was like a train that just kept going. Then he got hit, and I played it as if he were in shock. And the first thought that would come into his head is, oh god, my god, I could die.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there you go.
I mean, he did learn a similar kind of lesson on the Valiant, but
he didn't die there.
True. He just learned that some people can be assholes.
Yeah, it's an important lesson to learn. Let's be honest.
Yeah. Unfortunately, Nog is going to lose his leg. Bashir says maybe they can get him a cool cyborg leg, but they have to wait and see if there's too much nerve damage first. Quark is being his usual annoying self and accuses Sisko of basically not caring about Nog. And Sisko reacts about like you'd expect when you accuse a commanding officer of not caring about his troops. Then Sisko goes to pay a visit to Nog, who apologizes for getting Larkin killed. Don't worry about it, says Sisko. I'm proud of you. Nog is in mostly good spirits and says the leg doesn't hurt, but he asks Sisko if the communication array is really worth it. And Sisko says, I don't know, I hope so. And Nog was like, can you just lie to me and say yes?
Just yes would have been the best answer there. Just throwing that out.
Can you just evaluate the situation and appease me?
So there's 2 interesting notes in here about the what the episode is based on.
Okay.
So the first one is like the writers say it's loosely based on the Battle of Guadalcanal, which, in case you were unaware, was fought by the Allies and the Empire of Japan from August 1942 to February 1943. And so, according to Weddle, those men and women stopped something incredibly evil. And when they came back, there was no talk about post-traumatic stress syndrome or therapy groups. They won, but it changed their whole lives. Ira and Hans really tried to capture the essence of that.
I wonder if there was a very big movie about Guadalcanal that came out in the mid-90s that might have inspired that thinking.
Or are you saying that Ira Stephen Bear saw a movie and wanted to recreate it? That doesn't sound like him.
Man, I saw this great movie, The Thin Red Line. We should do that.
We should do that, but Star Trek. And so then, on the other hand, director Vinrich Kolbe had fought in the Vietnam War and allowed his knowledge of combat to influence the direction of the episode. And so he says that the battle in this episode has a great deal of similarity to the 1968 Battle of Khe Sanh, a battle which was won by the Americans, but the strategic significance of which is still debated to this day.
It's good to have an actual veteran directing your episode, probably.
Yeah, I could see that. So like he's talking about like you see the images of like churned up dirt. The battleground always looked like there was absolutely nothing there anyone would ever want, and yet people were blowing each other to smithereens over this land. I wanted AR-558 to be that kind of battleground, like totally nondescript, didn't deserve one single drop of blood shed over it, but it shouldn't say anything to the eye or the mind except that we were there because someone had decided to put a relay station here. Let's see, his personal recollection. What I remember from Vietnam is sitting in a ditch somewhere and waiting. It's the waiting that drives you nuts. You know they're coming. You can hear them. You can feel them. When you have to wait, your mind plays tricks on you, and you hear things, and you see things, like Vargas, who's about to explode. But once the battle starts, your adrenaline kicks in, and you have an objective.
Cool.
So, really infused some of that in there.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of tense waiting in this episode. So then Esri comes in with good news. They got the Houdini problem solved. Esri does some tricorder stuff, and a zillion mines appear, floating all over the place.
Yeah, I love the shot
one right next to Vargas's head.
Yes, exactly. Where the shot where he turns his head and it pans over and shows the mine like right there. It's a great shot.
Okay, now just gotta figure out how to disarm them, says engineer guy. So it's like, wait, you made all the mines appear, but you don't know how to disarm them yet? What's Vargas gonna do?
Well, I mean, we couldn't see them before now. How are we gonna figure out how to disarm them if we can't even see them?
But Sisko has a better plan than disarming them. Luckily, there's a narrow ravine between the Federation cave set and the Jem'Hadar cave set. If they put all the mines in that ravine, they can kill a bunch of Jem'Hadar once they come to attack. Esri contemplates darkly about how a little while ago those mines were an atrocity. But now that they can use them, it doesn't seem as wrong. Sisko says, "Wow, that's an interesting observation. But also I don't care."
I mean, that is very Sisko. The pragmatic warrior is like, no, that's something to think about. Sure, after we're not dead.
I guess you don't remember that time I dropped toxins into an entire planet's atmosphere.
Yeah, Sisko does not care. Ira Bear was extremely happy with the way the episode turned out, especially this bit where the Starfleet personnel used the weapons that they'd previously condemned as vile. And he says, the whole idea of God is on our side in war is such a strange concept, but it's used all the time. Nobody is clean in war.
Wow, profound.
Yeah.
Ira Stephen Bear. I just keep thinking back to the Thin Red Line now. It's like, who's doing this? Who's killing us?
I don't think I ever saw that.
It's basically the Battle of Guadalcanal, but it's like a bunch of people doing like voiceovers, just like contemplating the nature of war and evil and stuff.
Huh.
It's like, is this evil something that lives within us? Or is it created? Stuff like that. So anyway, then it's time for the waiting. The mines are apparently planted, and everyone sits around waiting for the battle. Reese runs around giving everybody power packs. Engineer guy fidgets with the sights on his phaser rifle and wonders if the Jem'Hadar get nervous before a battle. Doubtful, says Sisko.
I mean, you've gone into battle with the Jem'Hadar before, so you know the answer to this question.
Yeah, I think you guys should probably have a pretty clear idea of that. Then music starts playing. Vic's voice wafts in, singing, "I'll Be Seeing You." "Oh no, lounge music," says Vargas. "What a creepy, threatening song, given the current situation. These Jem'Hadar are sadistic." No, says Bashir, "it's supposed to lift everybody's spirits."
Apparently this was one of the most popular songs during World War II, so according to this note. It was written in 1938, so it's the right timing, I guess.
Sure. But yeah, I have to imagine it's making it kind of hard for the enemy to listen for the enemy approaching, but
you would think, right?
Bashir gets his rifle ready. Vargas says, "Looks like you've done that before." And Bashir says, "Too many times. It's funny, I joined Starfleet to save lives." "Well, you can save our lives by shooting those other guys." Off in the distance, they can see and hear the mines going off. Then there's silence. Vargas says, "Maybe they got them all, and the Jem'Hadar aren't coming."
Yeah, maybe those just killed every single one of them somehow. That would be awesome.
But no, the Jem'Hadar show up, and a big bloody battle starts. backed by vaguely platoon-sounding music.
Yeah, so there's a note in here that the associate producer, Terry Potts, says, we wanted to mix the battle sounds under the music, so I went to Rick Berman and told him what we wanted to do, and he said, okay, but make it sad.
All right, good note.
Yeah, I mean, there you go. That really says it all. It's like, make sure everyone is sad. I also like the note that I feel like relates to this scene and the episode as a whole, where Hans Beimler says, the thing that Ira and I both wanted to do was make war as gritty as possible. You can make what somebody called the Game Boy Wars, the Nintendo War. Too clean, too cute, nobody pays a price. You see ships blowing up, and that's kind of cool. But you don't get a feeling of what war is.
Yeah.
Everyone said this was our Saving Private Ryan. But we'd come up with it before we were even aware of what they were doing on Saving Private Ryan. It wasn't really that for us.
I think there had been plenty of gritty war movies before Saving Private Ryan. But So a bunch of non-main characters die, including Vargas. Engineer guy dies, saving Esri. And even Quark gets a little bit of action, using the phaser that he's been conspicuously wearing on his hip the whole time to defend Nog from an attacking Jim'Hadar.
Yeah, good for him. Also, the scene where Bill Mumy dies, apparently like him and Ira Stephen Bear are friends. And so that day, it says, Bear took time out of his busy schedule to go down to the set to see the scene where Kellen dies, even though Bear didn't usually get to visit the set.
Huh.
After filming the scene in which Kellen is killed, an amused Bear announced to the cast and crew on a megaphone, Star Trek just killed Will Robinson.
All right.
Yeah.
Good one. And then Sisko gets knocked down, and the last thing he sees is a Jim'Hadar standing over him, aiming a phaser right at his head. But then he comes to and finds that he's not dead. Reese killed that Jim'Hadar or something.
Somebody did.
The battle is over. Sisko says, we held. And Reese says, those were our orders, sir. Our very, very helpful orders.
Man, what if Quark had shown up and saved Sisko?
What if? That would have been interesting.
Yeah.
Like, Quark is the one complaining about the horrors of war the whole time, and then he killed... I mean, Quark has killed before. It seems like every time Quark kills, it's like the first time, and he's like, what have I done?
Like the time he accidentally killed the Klingon? Yeah.
So later Worf comes down and says, oh hey, good news, reinforcements showed up. And he says, it was a great victory, worthy of story and song. And Sisko says, it cost enough. And then the reinforcements show up. Children, says Reese. Not for long, says Sisko. Then Reese takes his knife and throws it on the ground, and they beam out. But he keeps his Ketracel White vials.
Yeah. I hope they left the information about those mines in case the Dominion tries to use them again. It's like, by the way, if mines start showing up, here's how you fix that.
Yep. Hopefully. Who knows? Back on the station, Sisko is in his office working when Kira comes in with the latest casualty reports. 1,730 killed, including those lost on AR-558. A lot of names, says Kira. They're not just names, says Sisko. It's important to remember that.
I wanted Sisko, when she starts talking about that, to be like, hey, what about those new security whatevers that Odo was talking about?
It's like, what about the security protocols? Like, yeah, I gotta go. But yeah, Kira's like, so do you actually want to see the names? And Sisko says, nah. The end. And I don't want to see any security protocols either.
No, you guys handle that stuff. It's fine. Let's see. There's a note that several of the soldiers' names are borrowed from the 1962 Don Siegel film Hell is for Heroes, which was a favorite of several of the writers. Reese, for example, is named after the Steve McQueen character, and Larkin after the Harry Guardino character.
Nice.
So, yeah. Go watch Hell is for Heroes and hear some of the same names.
Sounds like a fun movie.
Apparently, this episode, it says that episodes like Rejoined, Far Beyond the Stars, Inquisition, In the Pale Moonlight, and Shadows and Symbols generated a great deal of controversy among fans. But this episode generated backstage controversy more so than any other Deep Space Nine episode.
Oh, really?
Ira Stephen Bear says a lot of people didn't want us to do this episode, and a lot of people were unhappy it was being developed. But I felt that we needed to do it. War sucks, war is intolerable, war is painful, and good people die. You win, but you still lose, and we needed to show that as uncompromisingly as possible. War isn't just exploding ships and special effects.
I mean, they've had several episodes with this exact theme, but...
No, this is the one.
Right.
And then, similarly, Armin Shimmerman is like, yeah, I'm really proud of this episode because of how un-Star Trek-like it is. Like, Starfleet officers are heroes usually, and they stand up to the enemy and take it like men and women. They never think twice about dying, and it can be one individual against 1,000 and nobody ever blinks. Which I've always found a little facetious. So I was pleased that our writers took the opposite point of view, which is that war is horrible and scary and there are consequences to it. The last thing I want is for young members of the audience to think that war is easy. It's not easy, nor is it glamorous. That's the message the story is trying to get across, and I thank the writers for having the courage to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess he's not wrong. About war sucks.
I mean, I've never been to war, but I don't feel like I need to agree with that, so...
Yeah. But my favorite note in the whole thing is, so at the beginning, when they beam down, Vinrich Kolbe wanted the actors to crouch down behind cover so that they'd materialize, like, in that position, because they're beaming down into a war zone.
Sure.
And Nicole DeBoer, who you remember is still, like, new to the cast this year, she's the new kid on the block. She's like, wait. Nobody ever beams in crouched down. And the director's like, no, we're going to shoot I'm the director. We're going to do what I say. And Nicole DeBoer's like, no, this isn't right. And so she goes to the production office and it's like, hey, he's trying to make people beam in crouched down. And the production office is like, oh yeah, no, Star Trek doesn't do that. And so the director had to back down and do the shot the way that they said.
What the heck?
And then the secondary note in here is like, Kirk and crew do duck during transport in the episode The Corbomite Maneuver, but that's because the ceiling is low, not because they expected to be coming in under fire.
Okay, so that doesn't count, I guess.
It goes on to note that, like, in the movie that comes later than this, the J.J. Abrams Star Trek movie or whatever, somebody beams in crouched down. But I say that doesn't count.
Yeah, that was an alternate timeline. Yeah. One thing I was thinking, though, is, like, I mean, the Jem'Hadar can't just beam to their location, so I assume they must have some kind of, like, transporter scrambling or something. And so I assume, like, if Federation people are beaming in, it's because they let them in.
Yeah, you'd have to think that.
So if you were seeing some people beam in, wouldn't you be like, oh, or did we let some Federation people beam down?
Yeah, that's an interesting point.
I was just like, how's that work?
Yeah, that's inconsistent, all right. Although, apparently, the lieutenant's like, I told you all that, like, people were beaming in, and Vargas is like, you didn't tell me. I bet that happened.
Right. I bet she did tell Vargas.
But I just love that Nicole DeBoer is like, I'm going to stand my ground on this Star Trek precedence, even if I have to go over your head.
This is the hill I'm going to die on.
And she won, so I guess it worked out.
Good for her, I guess. I mean, if they would have beamed in crouching, I would not have even noticed or cared. So, although, like, if you beam in crouching, don't you have to, like, find some rocks for you to beam in, like, crouching behind?
You would think, right? Yeah.
So, okay, I see some rocks right there. So you crouch down, and I'll beam you right behind those rocks. So,
yep, there we go.
Is that all the notes?
Well, except for the fact that there's 2 rules of acquisition reference. Do you remember what they are?
Oh, yeah. War is good for business.
Yep,
which,
number 34.
Quark points out only counts if you're far away from the war. And you can't make deals when you're dead, which was, I think, 125?
Yep. You can't make a deal if you're dead. I feel like that one may be new. I don't remember having heard that one before now.
Yeah, I don't recall it. Makes sense, though.
I'm pretty sure we've heard war is good for business before, though.
Yeah. I'm sure they've done the, like, war is good for business and peace is good for business shtick before. So.
Exactly.
All right, so that's it?
Yeah, that's everything.
Review time.
All right.
So what do you think of the siege of AR-558?
Okay, what do I think of this episode? So, this is definitely a Deep Space Nine episode.
Sure.
I don't know that you could have done this episode on any other Star Trek, except for, I guess, like, maybe a Discovery or something. Even Voyager doesn't it has some dark stuff for sure, but it doesn't quite do this, I don't think. So this almost feels to me like one of the quintessential Deep Space Nine episodes that like
Sure.
tells you what Deep Space Nine is about, really. And I think that it does a good job at what it's trying to do. The internal logical consistency of why like Ezri is one of the people they beam down, I don't know,
Right.
makes sense.
Why is Quark there?
Yeah, I get why the writers wanted to use these characters in this way. So, Ezri and Quark make sense for that. But why Cisco would want to do it this way doesn't make much sense.
Uh-huh.
So, like, there's several little plot inconsistencies like that, I feel like. But overall, I think it's a very tight episode. This is also definitely one of those episodes where there's not, unless you count fixing the thing, like the engineering section as the B story, there's not really a B story here. This is all A story. It's just an A story with a couple of different facets to it. And we're putting things in place that are, for Nog in particular, that are going to have ramifications way down the road. Not only that, but we're like, this is a ramification of the earlier like Battle of Chintaka that we saw. So this is very much an arcy episode, which I appreciate.
Sure.
I really don't have much negative that I can say about this episode. I think I'm gonna have to go captain on it.
Oh, wow. Nice. So, I like what this episode tries to accomplish and accomplishes, which, as we mentioned, is to show that war is bad and not just a fun plot device. And, like, to reinforce that there's, a real war going on out there, and the people dying are not nameless red shirts. But I feel like it's not necessarily breaking new ground for Deep Space Nine. But like you said, it's really solidly executed. But I was just thinking, like, episodes like The Ship, which, where Muniz dies and Cisco has to put his people's life on the line and wonder if the strategic target is really worth it or whatever.
It's true, Muniz.
And Nor the Battle to the Strong, where Jake experiences the psychological effects of battle up close and, like, learns that you can't judge a person, like, who shoots himself in the foot or whatever.
Yeah.
So I felt like those dealt with the same themes in a little bit more interesting and effective ways.
Okay.
I have always been interested in the psychological effects of Starfleet, which is a diplomatic and scientific institution primarily. Like, what happens when they have to go to war.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I've always had my, fan series that I think I wrote, like, half of a pilot script for one time, which is about, like, these people who joined Starfleet thinking they were going to be doing science and stuff, and then having to go fight the Dominion War, and then them, like, having to renormalize after that. This made, Bashir was like, I thought I joined Starfleet to save lives and stuff.
Yeah.
And it's like, when war breaks out, you might be put in that situation. I thought the guest stars were pretty good. I'm not usually in love with episodes that take place entirely on the cave set.
Yeah.
And as I mentioned before, don't tease me with Rom trying out for Vix and then having the whole episode be a depressing war story. But, I liked it. I thought it was pretty good. I don't think it's up to captain level for me, though, so I'm just going to give it a commander.
It's interesting what you were saying about, like, the psychological effect, because there's some episodes of Lower Decks that deal with that, where there's this one person is a veteran of the Dominion War and has been, like, pushing down a lot of the feelings about that, where it's like, I joined to, like, scan cool stuff and learn things, and then had to go through all this crap. And also, they were also, like, friends with Ceto Jaxa in the Academy, and then, like, learning what happens to her, where she, like, sacrifices herself for the mission or whatever. In the episode Lower Decks,
right?
She was like, and, like, I didn't join for, like, to see my friends, like, go through that kind of, like, horrible stuff. So, like, she's having to deal with that, and she's been avoiding dealing with it, and it starts coming, like, part of the season. She's just like being weird and aggressive about stuff and nobody's sure why. And then like over the course, like this stuff starts to come out and it's actually really interesting.
Is Lower Decks, did they wrap up their last season yet?
Yes, it is done.
I gotta binge that at some point, I guess.
Pretty easy to binge given that there's, I think, 50 half-hour episodes.
Right. Just always a thing about the Dominion War that I thought was kind of an interesting thing to explore.
Yeah, you gotta feel like very few people signed up for Starfleet for this.
Right. But yeah, you got any final thoughts about that before we wrap it up?
No, I don't think so.
So yeah, that's our discussion of the Siege of AR-558. Thanks for listening. If you like that one, maybe you'll like our discussion of Nor the Battle to the Strong, which shows what happens when Jake Sisko gets into a situation like this, with maybe predictable results.
I mean, I feel like some of it's not quite predictable, but maybe overall.
Yeah, it's a pretty good episode. I forget how I rated that episode, though. But you can find that wherever you're listening to this. And if you want to leave us a comment, you can do that on YouTube, and maybe we'll reply. Who knows? You could talk to us super famous people directly. But my name is Fletcher. About to say goodbye is Data.
Adios.
We look forward to seeing you next week on Undeclared Bajor. But remember, until then, we hold.